So hello. Welcome to Deep Stretch today. Some props that are going to come in handy, at least one block and a blanket if you have it. So that's going to be kind of your luxury prop option is going to be the blanket. But other than that, we're going to get started right now. Without further ado, we're going to get started in Shavasana. So take these first couple of minutes to either grab the props you need, maybe get a playlist going, light some candles, pour some wine, whatever you're going to do. Just get yourself settled and then recline all the way onto your back. So if this is your first time taking a yin style class, the entire purpose behind this particular flavor of yoga is to really hold the poses for a longer period of time so that both our minds and our bodies can settle in. So it takes anywhere from 90 seconds to about 3 minutes for our physical tissues to accept change. If only it was that short of an amount of time for our brains to accept change, I think life would be a lot simpler. But that's the real practice that we're embodying. We're feeling things in our physical bodies, in our tissues, in this contraption that carries us through our lives. We're practicing that so that later on, when things get really challenging and our mind has to cope, we've got some tools in our toolbox to make that a little easier. So this evening, as we dive into the topic of prana, I want you to think about how life is a very complex balancing act. We're up, we're down, we're over here, we're back over there. So prana, directly translated in one form, means breath. And breath is something that we need quite literally to stay alive. So prana is this essential force that keeps us alive, keeps us conscious, and in a modern context, keeps us quite woke. So really focus on your breath this evening. I'll give you lots of reminders. And then the flip side to prana is an energy called apana. So prana is very uplifting, it's energetic, and apana is more grounding, it's a bit slower. So of course, this is a very simplified model that we're working with this evening, but really focus, really notice how we practice the dynamism of life on our mats this evening as we dial things up and release them back down. So starting exactly where you are, noticing if maybe you've already kind of transitioned out of life brain into yoga practice brain. Wherever you are in your breathing cycle, pause and exhale. Exhale a little more. Exhale a little more until you're completely empty. And then take a deep breath in through both nostrils. Open your mouth, sigh your breath out. Do that twice more. Deep breath in. Last time together. Deep breath in. Now seal your lips and continue to breathe both in and out just through your nostrils. Not forcing anything, but simply noticing where your energy level is right now. What's your starting point? If there's anything about this posture that is starting to get uncomfortable, feel free to maybe shift, shimmy, wiggle, maybe change the positioning of your arms. We're only here for another moment or two. So if you can, try and find that stillness, knowing that discomfort is temporary. And then keeping yourself fully reclined, very heavy on the floor, start to reach your arms all the way up overhead. So the backs of your knuckles are gonna find the floor behind you. And if you have the space, take a full body stretch. So the legs reach out long in front of you, arms are reaching up overhead behind you. And we're gonna take this full body stretch into a very gentle side bend. So try to keep your hips very heavy. And then begin to create a banana shape or a crescent moon shape with your spine. So what that means is you're gonna start sliding your knuckles over to the left, your ankles over to the left. And if you feel like you're rolling onto your left side, do yourself a solid here, roll that right shoulder back to connect to the floor, and then scoot both of your shoulder blades over to the left, so that you get more side bending in your right side. Now, once you get your spine set in that banana curve shape, now we need to decide what to do with our limbs. The legs might be heavy and happy just as they are. If you need to intensify that side bend, try crossing your right ankle on top of your left ankle. Your arms might just stay reaching towards the wall behind you, or maybe you bring hands to interlace or hands to opposite elbows. There's no right or wrong with the limbs here. As long as you're starting to feel some sort of action along the right side of you. That might be the front of your right hip. That might be a lengthening in the low back muscles along the right side of your spine. If at any point you start to feel too much compression or a crunching sensation on the left side, lessen the intensity of that curve. And then allow yourself to sink back in a little bit deeper to the floor. Breathing in and breathing right back out. Now that we've passed that 30-second initial threshold, can you feel anything about your muscle fibers releasing here? Can you feel that mental, physical connection between your body realizing, okay, we're here on purpose, and your brain willing your muscles to soften a little bit more? Taking mental notes on every single sensation that you detect. And then knowing that your timing might be a little bit different than everyone else. On your next inhale, as slowly as you can, start to come back through center. Maybe with little shifts of your shoulders, little sliding motions of your heels. And then between every single posture in a yin practice, we give ourselves a few moments to intuitively let that shape settle in. So give yourself a minute here. Does it feel like you need to roll? Does it feel like you need to bend your knees? Do you need to send your legs up towards the sky for a minute? For a lot of us, our spines might feel a little uneven. And if you have a lot of air in your joints, if you pop and crack quite often, you might feel like you need an adjustment here. And then right around the time when you feel ready to slow yourself back into stillness, let's head to the opposite side. So now we're making that crescent moon shape, that banana asana, if you will, over to the right. So start to slide your heels over to the right. Start to slide your wrists to the right. Allow your shoulders as a unit to move to the right side of your mat so that your hips, your spine, the back of your head stay heavy on the floor. We want to avoid any rolling onto our right side. So do what you can here to keep both your right and your left shoulder blade firmly connected to the mat. And then once you get settled, lots of options once again on what to do with your limbs. If you feel like this is enough side bending on your left side, legs can stay as they are. If you need more, maybe you add the left ankle on top of the right ankle now or later. The arms can just rest all willy-nilly, or maybe fingers interlace, perhaps even hands come to opposite elbows. Just breathing. It can sometimes happen in a yoga practice where a silent moment stretches just long enough to make you wonder, am I doing it right? Did the internet freeze? Am I in an alternate reality? The likelihood of those things happening is small, so give yourself credit and know that you're doing it exactly right. You're allowing your body to rest, so let your mind do the same. Deep breath in. Full breath out. Deep breath in. Full breath out. And keep that pattern going. If you had to categorize the energy of this moment, how would you describe it? Is it energizing? Is it relaxing? Perhaps it's neutral. And just make a little mental note about what you noticed there. For some of us, we might need a little bit longer on this second side. So feel free to stay as long as you need to achieve balance between the left and the right sides. From a timing perspective, take one more breath in, one more breath out. And if you are ready, on your next inhale, start to make your way back through center. Again, passing through any little shifts, any adjustments, anything that your body says it needs to recalibrate that side to side situation. Very good. Now, however you choose to move from resting on your back to coming up to a seated posture is just fine. If you need something slow, roll to your side, press up. If you are ready to come up a little bit more quickly, maybe you hug your knees to your chest and you rock right up through center. Now, for those of you with a block or with a block-like object, I'm going to highly encourage that you place that block underneath your seat in Sukhasana. Even if you don't normally sit on a block, we're going to be here for a little while, so it can be really helpful. Now, the extra luxurious version of this prop situation is you're going to take your block on its lowest level, you're going to throw a blanket or a cushion on top, and voila, it's basically a meditation cushion. Wonderful. So as you get yourself set up here in your seats, if you don't have any props, no worries. Just know that you might need to change your sitting situation at some point to help you stay a little bit more present, a little bit more comfortable. We're going to get into the shoulders a little bit here. So remember what I said about prana being that vital force. It's heating, it's energizing. And then we have apana that's a little bit more grounding. So we're going to start to play with the interchange between those two. So what I'd like for you to do is first sort of establish your seat. Make sure that your hips aren't too far behind or in front of your shoulders. You want your spine to be nice and tall. Try and stack your earlobes right on top of your shoulders. And then just notice if you take a little seated cat-cow here, as you inhale, your chest, your belly is going to go forward. Your hips, your shoulders are going to go back. That's a shape. And then as you exhale, round everything over, think about sending your mid-back back, your chin towards your chest. This is also a shape. Inhale, come back to neutral. We want to keep neutral as much as possible. So as we start to get into the shoulders here, what you're going to do is start to bring your hands behind your back. Now, the fullest expression of this shape while you're seated might be hard to see with black sleeves here, but ideally you're bringing hands to opposite elbows. Now, some of us were not gifted with incredibly open shoulders or very long arms, so if that is impossible and you immediately want to throw something at your computer screen, instead, maybe slide your hands towards opposite wrists, fingers towards opposite fingers, or maybe just rest your hands on your low back. But essentially, whichever variation you choose, you're going to start to feel something in the fronts of your shoulders. So get yourself seated, relatively comfortable, and then decide, hands at low back, fingers to fingers, hands to wrists, maybe hands to opposite elbows. Very good. And then assess your posture. Are we in more of a cow back? Or can we bring that more towards neutral? Don't allow the pressure of your arms to push your rib cage forward. Press your tailbone into the block, into the floor. Reach the crown of your head up towards the ceiling and allow the heat to start building in your shoulders. And breathe. The sensation that you get in your shoulders may or may not be intense right off the bat. It might not even be intense at all, So whatever it is you are experiencing, whether you are a 1 out of 10 or you've dialed it up to 11, just notice how it changes over time. Your eyes might close. And if you need something to keep your mind focused, perhaps start to count your breaths. Counting to 4 or 5 on your inhale, and try to match that count with your exhale. You're about halfway there. Can you feel any shifts? Can you feel anything changing? And then check back in with your posture. Our last few moments here, let's add in just a little bit of neck stretching. So nothing is going to change about the arms, the hands, or the shoulders. Be sure to draw your ribs into that neutral spine position. Take a big breath in. And as you exhale, drop your left ear towards your left shoulder. And if you have any upper trap tension, which, let's be honest, if you are a human being living in the year 2020, you probably do, you might search around a little bit here. So rather than simply dropping left ear towards left shoulder, you might draw your chin in just a little bit closer to your chest. You might press the back of the head a little closer to the wall behind you. You might spiral your cervical spine around until you really find that sweet spot in the top of your right shoulder. Very slowly bring your head back through center. Notice any recoil, and then switch sides. Exhale, right ear, right shoulder. And then fine tune. These little movements are things that no yoga teacher will ever be able to tell you exactly what you need. Only the teacher that lives directly in your brain, that is to say, the teacher that you yourself are, will be able to find those little adjustments. And then next inhale, bring your head back through center. Notice any little shifts or adjustments. And then whatever you're hanging onto with your hands, very slowly start to release. And then extend your arms out to the sides, maybe roll your wrists, take some shoulder rolls, open and close the shoulder joints. And then release your arms down towards the floor. Maybe your hands rest on your thighs. Give yourself about 30 seconds here to just recalibrate. Deep breath in. Slow breath out. What can you feel happening in your neck, in your shoulders, in your upper back? Any temperature changes, any tingling, any urge to pop or shift. And then gently blink your eyes open, and we'll start to increase the fire a little bit here. So just a heads up, this one is going to be a little bit spicier. If you need to take little rest breaks partway through, that is totally fine. One of the goals of yin is to find stillness for as long as possible. That does not mean do or die, the sky will fall if you take a break. So breaks are totally fine. Rather than interlacing your hands at your low back, this time we're going to go all the way up overhead and bring hands towards opposite wrists at first. If your arms and your shoulders will accommodate hands to opposite elbows, that's what we're shooting for. But again, if your proportions are like, no, that doesn't work for me, hands on opposite forearms at any point is just fine. And then notice immediately, does your spine arch forward? Do you round over? Does everything about this make your stomach and your rib cage fill with dread? And your goal here is to keep the spine long and neutral, to keep the ribs tucked in, and at the same time to keep your shoulders heavy. It's a very big ask. So feel that prana start to pulse through your shoulder blades, through your neck, through your fingertips. Feel the heat rise. Remember that prana means breath. So notice how your breath changes in response to that intensity. Our bodies know exactly how to cope with discomfort. So give them the opportunity to do so. Practice. If you need a break, now is the halfway point. So feel free to rest for a moment or two, a breath or two, and then come right back in. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. You're so close. Last 3, 2, 1. Next, exhale, release your arms all the way down by your sides. And then feel almost that cold chill-like sensation of the heat draining out of your arms. Might be subtle, it might be incredibly dramatic, but just feel how the temperature of your arms change. Give yourself a moment here. Maybe there's another neck stretch or a little side to side for you. Any shifts, rolls, shimmies. And then as we start to shift our focus from the shoulders to the quads and the hips, go ahead and slide your block or your blanket or both out of the way. So I'm going to give you 2 options to really focus on the quads in this situation. So the first one is going to involve a twist. So if you are pregnant, if you have any spinal injuries, or if twisting just generally doesn't feel good for you, you're going to skip the twisted option and you're going to take the second option that I give instead. If you're fine with twisting, if you have no injuries, if you're not growing a human inside of you, We'll go ahead and build into the twist right now. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna come into a Z sit or a deer pose. So drop your right knee out to the right side, and then you're gonna internally rotate your left hip, bringing your left knee towards your right foot. Great, if you're hanging on for that second option, just meditate on whatever you want. Lefts and rights are kind of tricky. If you're with me in this twisted situation, right about now you might be feeling something in your left hip. So double check, your right hip is rolling open, your left hip is rolling closed. That's what we want. Rotate yourself gently to the right side so that your fingers can find the floor. And now this is where the magic really happens. Pick your left butt cheek up off the floor. So you're gonna think about kind of, belly bumping the wall in front of you by pushing your left hip flexor forward. You with me? Very good. Now start to walk your fingers forward and more to the right until you start to feel a stretch in the top of your left thigh, your left quadriceps. So if you have very tight quads, you might feel this immediately. If you don't feel a stretch at all, no matter where you put your fingers, try the second option instead. So if you're twisted, if you're happy, if you feel that quad stretch, stay as you are. If we're going for option number 2, this is where we're headed. You are going to keep your right leg long on the mat ahead of you. You're going to bend your left knee and bring your left heel in close to your left hip. So side view like so. Front view like so. Wonderful. You can always bring a blanket or a block back underneath your hips here. Now, to really focus on stretching that left quad, what we're going to start to do is walk our hands back. We might even lower down onto our forearms. LOL, things get weird here. For some people, their low back does not love this. So if you feel some pressure in your low back, do yourself a favor, tuck your tailbone under, and that'll really turn on that quad stretch, that top of your left thigh. Awesome. Wherever you are, deep breath in. Full breath out. Deep breath in. Full breath out. And keep that going. We're here for just a little bit longer. Maybe comparing the sensations of this posture to the ones that came before it. Does this feel more or less spicy than that overhead hold? Does this feel more or less spicy than that behind the back hold? Would you categorize this as energizing, relaxing, or neutral? One of the goals in yoga is to recognize that everything is neutral. So can you nudge your experience in that direction? No matter what shape you are in, you've got 3 more breaths. On your next inhale, either unraveling from the twist or pressing yourself back up to a seat. It does not matter what you do with your legs at the top. Just do something that lets that stretch go. So maybe 2 long legs, maybe a little straddle, It could be a very casual Janu Shirshasana where one knee is bent and one leg is long. There's not a ton of hamstring focused work in our class this evening, so this might be a lovely time to add in a little stretch for the back of your legs. And then starting to prepare mentally for that second side, decide right now what posture you'd like to do, the twisted quad stretch or the reclined quad stretch. I'll go through demos of both once again, but a little bit speedier this time. So side 2 for our twist. Left knee is dropping over to the left side. So you've got your left hip externally rotating. Right knee is gonna come towards your left foot, so that means your right hip is internally rotating. Very good. Lots of anatomy speak. Y'all are killing it. So you might start to feel some stuff in the front of your right hip. That's good. Rotate left. Push your right hip forward. Your right hip, your right butt cheek is lifting up off the floor. That's what we want. Now walk your fingers away from you and more left. Engage your glutes to push your hips forward. Feel the top of your right thigh begin to stretch. If you're good in the twist, stay there. If you're taking that reclined quad stretch, it's called a half hero's pose. Left leg is long, right knee is bent. Right heel next to or under your right bum. Start to walk your hands back. Maybe reclining to your forearms if that's possible. The real key here is to pick up your hips, tuck your bum underneath you, and allow your tailbone to reach down towards your right knee. And just breathe. Can you decide if this side is tighter or more mobile than the first? Perhaps this side opens up more quickly or resists change with more fervor. That prana is essential. But as you breathe through these sensations, can you nudge your experience towards neutral? Last 3 breaths. And as you inhale, slowly unravel or bring yourself back up. Whatever you need to do with your legs at the top here, just let it happen, feel it out, know that it's all correct. There's a lot of focus on the tops of the thighs in the last several minutes here. So to balance that out, the backs of the thighs might need a little bit more attention. Wonderful. As you start to find yourself settling back into stillness, go ahead, grab your block once again. And you're gonna wanna just bring it somewhere within arm's reach as you turn yourself to face the short edge of your mat. So for some of you, you might already be there. But essentially what we want to do here is be seated in the middle of our mat so our legs can go forward. Wonderful. Now this is a stretch that I think a lot of people maybe did in like a high school gym class, or if you ever played sports, this is a kind of a weird one. So we're gonna get a little bit more into the fronts of the shoulders. We're not gonna hold this one very long. If this is painful on your shoulders, so if you have a shoulder injury or a collarbone injury, you're gonna skip this one. So feel free to feel it out, see what you think, and then maybe skip it. So essentially what I'm gonna do here is bring my hands behind me, thumbs face out. So if I had my fingers facing forward, my shoulders would roll forward. I want my shoulders to roll back. So thumbs are on the outer edges of the mat here. You might need to bend your knees, that's totally fine. But essentially what you're gonna start doing is walking your hands backwards. It might be a little, it might be a lot. And then just notice, boy, oh boy, maybe you feel this in your chest. Maybe you feel this in your tailbone. Maybe you feel this in the depths of your soul. If there's anything even bordering on pain here, walk yourself back up and out of this shape. If you're doing okay, try to hang on for 5 more breaths. If you are thriving, try and walk those hands back even further. 4 more breaths. Last 2. Last 1. And gently walk your hands back in and up. If you got a little tingling along the way there in your hands or your arms, shake it out. Notice where you felt that the most. And then again, just make sure that your block is somewhere easily within reach and head to your back once again. So the knees are gonna bend, the soles of your feet are gonna come to the mat, and we'll set ourselves up for a supported bridge pose. If you're going to get yourself set up in bridge pose and you're not gonna be able to see your screen pretty easily, let me do a quick demo of where we'll head from bridge pose. So watch quickly first, and then you're gonna have all the time in the world. So from bridge pose, I'm gonna encourage you to lift your hips, slide your block underneath your sacrum. So your sacrum is down low enough that when you give your weight to the block, you should not feel any pressure on your low back whatsoever. You'll have the opportunity then over the next several minutes to start extending your legs, maybe 1 step at a time, until perhaps you find full pontoon pose. So long legs, long arms, hips elevated as we open through the front of the hip flexors and enjoy a very gentle back bend. So now that you've seen that, go ahead and recline onto your backs. Bend your knees, soles of the feet come to the floor. And as you're ready, press down into your feet. Think about flattening your low back into the mat as you pick your hips up and slide your block underneath your tailbone. Now we want to make sure that block is either on its lowest setting or at most its middle setting. And then even though you know that pontoon is an option, give yourself several moments in bridge first. Now, right about now, if you're doing this practice without props, you might take a break. Lower your hips all the way down to the floor. Do a little windshield wiper with your knees. Give your low back, your glutes, your quads a break. And if you're doing this practice without props, you might even decide that here is where you'd like to start making your way towards Shavasana. You can let all the rest of the bridge pose time go. If you have the support of your block, now is a great time to start flirting with pontoon pose. So maybe inch by inch, you start to walk your heels away from you. If at any point you start to recognize, nope, 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 not for me, you can slide your heels back in. And then once your legs, your hips, your ribs are settled, find the exact right place for your arms. Maybe out to a T with the palms flipped open towards the ceiling. Maybe they're up overhead. Perhaps we even find that hands to opposite elbows over your head position again, just delighting in how much nicer it is to do that shape with the floor behind you. Just allow that downward pull. With your belly, with your hips as the highest point. Let everything drain from your feet. Let everything drain from the back of your head. Maybe even feeling yourself physically starting to cool off. If you're in pontoon pose, we want to slowly make our way back to bridge. And once you find your way to bridge pose, allow your hips once again to rest very heavily into that block. And just notice the ways that this shape is different from when your legs are extended. Recommit yourself to several more breaths right here with bent knees. Now, before you come off your block altogether, just listen to these words. That slight back bend from bridge and from pontoon invited some space into your lumbar vertebrae, into those discs that get so compressed from sitting, from driving, from a lot of our day-to-day activities. So in a moment, when you lift your hips and you slide your block out of the way, I want you to think about your spine as a slinky, and beginning with your upper spine, ending with your tailbone, one vertebra at a time, lower back down to the floor. And especially when you get to your low back, notice if there's more space as those bones press into your mat. So when you're ready, start to press into the pads of your feet. Lift your heels, lift your hips, slide that block out of the way. And then keep your heels lifted, so you're kind of up on your tiptoes here, and start to roll down from your shoulders all the way down to your hips. Feeling your low back as it presses, as it neutralizes into the floor. Maybe widening your feet a little bit here as you drop your heels, drop your hips all the way to the floor. The knees can either drop in together, making a little triangular shape, or if you need a little self-massage, like windshield wipers, drop your knees from side to side together. Head and shoulders are still very heavy on the mat. And any other movements, any other postures that you know you still need, now is the time to add those in. Otherwise, or afterwards, start to make your way towards Shavasana, your final resting posture of this practice. You can use your block, you can use your blanket. If you have other props at your disposal, maybe a bolster under your spine or under your knees, just get yourself real cozy. And allow everything to just settle. Maybe pondering for a moment, if one of the goals of yoga is to bring everything into neutrality, how is it that that overhead held posture could exist on the same plane as this very, very restful Shavasana? Can we one day invite our minds to hold both shapes on the same plane? And then letting those thoughts go. Just letting yourself breathe organically, control nothing, and just rest. without changing anything. Just notice how your breath is moving, how your body is occupying space. Are there any parts of you that are ready to wake up? And at the same time, are there parts of you that are very ready to just stay as you are? Take your next few breaths to try and bring every part of your mind, your body, your breath. Yoga them together, unite them together. Try to bring them into the same neutral space called the present moment. Maybe curling the fingers, wiggling the toes, blinking the eyes open. And then eventually bending the knees, maybe rolling to one side or even rocking up through center. Just making it very clear to yourself, to the space around you, that your practice, just this one, has come to an end. And as we transition now into what comes next, bring the palms together, thumbs hover just over the center of your chest. And with this very outward gesture of gratitude, find some thankfulness for yourself. Your simple existence is a miracle. Find some gratitude for your practice. And find a little extra gratitude for the way that those things have come together today. Thumbs float to the center of your forehead and bowing forward, sealing your practice. Namaste.